Rajesh Khanna's character in Anand said that जिंदगी लंबी नहीं बड़ी होनी चाहिए. लंबी तो हो जाएगी. Today medical science is very advanced. So my life will be long. I know that, but it should be worth it also.
Welcome to the Human Collab, a platform about people and their stories. Life, with all its unpredictability, often catches us off guard, presenting battles we never imagined we'd face. These battles test our resilience, challenge our spirits. Jayanti Chakraborty, our guest on today's podcast, believed that she had an iron gut, capable of digesting whatever life served her. But during a 10-day road trip to the remote parts of Sikkim, her sense of invincibility was challenged. What started as a mere dehydration and an upset stomach evolved into a medical mystery, unraveling her life in ways she could have never foreseen. An unsettling intuition that something was seriously amiss drove her forward. Despite the confusion and the misdiagnosis, her self-advocacy never wavered. Cancer does not solely attack the body, it challenges the spirit, the mind, and one's identity. Battling cancer is about more than enduring treatments and overcoming physical pain. It's about confronting the deep-seated fears, reshaping one's identity, and finding new meaning amidst chaos. Jayanti's story is not just about battling cancer twice. It encapsulates the emotional and psychological metamorphosis that accompanies such a diagnosis. How does one adapt to such a radical change in lifestyle? How does one reconcile with the limitations imposed by the illness? In this podcast, she narrates her experience to illustrate that even in the most difficult times, there is hope when you believe in yourself. Welcome to the Human Collab, Jayanti. Let's begin by knowing about your growing up years.
Morning, Mansa. Thank you so much for having me here today. I was born and brought up in Delhi. I grew up in West Delhi, and I went to a Catholic convent school. I was the only child of my parents. My mother was a bit of a pathbreaker herself. She was a corporate girly before the term was invented, and she worked for 40 years of her life in a hardcore corporate logistics company. And my father was a feminist husband and a dad, again, before the term was ever invented. He was an equal participant in bringing me up and managing our household. He was there to take care of me on the days when my mum wasn't around, and never shying away from entering the kitchen and doing the cooking. My years were filled with books, lots of them. Initially, my father reading out to me. And then, as Scout Finch says in To Kill a Mockingbird, I never realized when his moving fingers became words for me to read for myself. So books were a big part of our life. And I grew up with a lot of food, again, because my father was such a foodie. So experimenting with all kinds of cuisines. And a lot of travel. I've been told that my father started taking me to the road to go visiting some distance place when I was like 3 months old. So those were my growing up years, and those were so formative and so strong that till today my passions are books, food, and traveling.
It's wonderful. Also, in the entire spectrum of events when I was talking to you, you mentioned there was a road trip that you took, and some things changed after that road trip.
Yeah, so road trips and trips are a very significant part of my life. This was back in 2021 March. We were celebrating my elder cousin sister's birthday. So she, my uncle, my aunt, and I, we did this road trip in Sikkim, and we were on the road for like 10 odd days, and we went up to this lake, which is at the altitude of, I believe, 17,000 feet from the sea level, called Guru Dongmar. While we were going up in the mountains to visit the lake, for the first time, I felt a lot of discomfort. Now, I'm somebody who's, like I mentioned, has been traveling all her life. And both my dad and I have been a mountain freak. So we've gone up to very high altitudes, and I have never had an issue. So it was kind of strange that I was struggling so much as we were going up the altitude. But I didn't think much of that because, regions vary, oxygen vary. So this could be a one off. And then we came back after 10 days, back to Gurgaon, back to Delhi. And I started experiencing some gut issues. Again, I did not take it very seriously. Historically, I have had an iron gut. I could eat and digest almost everything. And I thought, again, 10 days road trip into Sikkim, some of the least populated parts of the country, there we don't have our regular food. Then obviously I was dehydrated. So I thought a combination of all of that probably led to this gut issue, and I didn't initially give it much thought. Then in about a week's time, when I did not recover, I started consulting some doctors. This was during the 2021 summer when we were experiencing the very, very painful and filled with loss second wave of COVID. So almost all consultations that I had was over the phone. So I started consulting some specialists, and I was given a range of medicines and a range of diagnoses, like IBS or not. Like some doctors said, I was imagining my illness, but nothing gave me relief. This went on for about 5 weeks. I was increasingly becoming weaker. I was experiencing intermittent fever, and I knew something was deeply wrong inside me, despite the doctors that I was consulting telling me otherwise. And this is where I feel, self-advocacy comes really into being. Because one day I sat down and I kind of analyzed everything that was happening to me. And I came to the conclusion that every time I had my periods, which also, by the way, had become very frequent, I felt relief. I felt relief for 2 or 3 days. And then again, I would become sick. I was convinced this was in some way or form gynecologically related. So I asked around and found a gynecologist and met her up. Even this doctor wasn't particularly convinced that I was unwell, and she even hinted that I shouldn't, Google my symptoms and think I have cancer or some such illness. But I kept advocating for myself, and I kept telling her, ma'am, I'm telling you, I'm not feeling good. There's something deeply wrong inside me. I can feel it. I need some help. After a significant amount of self-advocating, she finally consented to prescribe a basic CBC test. A CBC test is your regular blood hemoglobin level, the platelet counts, the red blood cells, the white blood cell count. So we went for that. And the results were, needless to say, very disturbing. My hemoglobin was low, but then historically I had low hemoglobin. So we weren't losing sleep about that. But what was alarming was my platelet count. A healthy person's platelet count ranges between 160, 100,000 to about 450, 100,000, give or take. Mine was sitting at somewhere around 700,000. There was definitely some kind of an infection in my body. It was only after that the gynecologist actually prescribed ultrasound. And during the ultrasound, it was discovered that I have a tumor among my reproductive organs, which is about 9 inches in diameter. That's like a football, which shocked everybody. Because prior to this trip, I had never been ill, ever. And that kind of started the unraveling of what I would finally be diagnosed with, which is 2 different primary cancers, one of the ovarian and one of the endometrial. And that is when my life started to turn.
How did life change after the diagnosis?
Oh, I see this very often that for any cancer patient, there is a BC and there is a PE. There's a before cancer life, and there is then just living in the cancer era. Because even if you recover, even if you go into remission, there is always the fear of reoccurrence. And then there is living with a body which has been so traumatized and broken through the treatment. So once you've been touched by the bony finger of cancer, there's really no way not to say that everything is BAU. It's not. It changes you. The way it changed me personally was, first of all, my understanding of my self-identity. The way I perceived myself before cancer completely broke down post-cancer. It had its good effects and it had its bad effects, but my self-identity and what I kind of assumed was Jayanti took a 180-degree turn practically in some ways. My career slowed down in the sense that I was this corporate girly climbing the corporate ladder, and that had to take a backseat, and that had to be revisited and re-examined. My relationships changed dramatically. Some for the good, some was not so good. And then my everyday life changed. Every small things which kind of we don't even think about, those things changed. For instance, there is this particular brand of hair oil which I loved, and I used to use, religiously. And after cancer and with chemo, because your taste changed and your smell changes, I couldn't tolerate that hair oil at all. I couldn't do with the smell. I love reading, as I've mentioned. It's not a love, it's a passion, it's an obsession. But every time I go through chemotherapy, there are these days when I just can't focus. The words become blurry, regardless of whether I'm reading a actual copy or electronic copy. It's hard to concentrate. It takes me longer to read. So things like that. I used to be extremely active. I was the girl who would work for 12 hours in the office, then come back and cook for 3 hours, and then host a dinner party for 18 people. That was the kind of person I was. Today, the very thought of it exhausts me. I love cooking, and I haven't cooked in years, months. So your life does change, and it changes quite a bit. Life goes on, and it brings with it highs and lows. Even with cancer, it brings with highs and lows. Let me speak of the bad first and get that out of the way, and then I can speak of the good, where I would want to spend more time. So the lows have been the fact that, and I spoke about this previously as well, were my relationships. I had a very strong circle, and I considered them my family, primarily because, I lost my parents quite a few years ago. So I kind of held these people very close to my heart and thought of them as my family. I had been part of their family's highs and lows, so I kind of thought of them as very close to me. And somehow, after the disease was diagnosed, after the initial, we will stand by you, don't worry, we are there for you, everybody almost everybody kind of disappeared. And it was very hard because the kind of person I am, in fact, most people, I think, when they have these kind of relationships, they put their heart and soul into it. And to realize that this was a one-sided affair, it's very heartbreaking. People talk about romantic breakups. They don't talk about the breakups in the friendship, which can be equally hard and equally painful. And considering the fact that I was already reeling from the trauma of being diagnosed as a cancer and the life changes it brought, it was a very difficult time for me initially. There are still days when I have other lows, the days when I feel that I should be doing XYZ thing, but I can't because, my body is just not giving me that support. I miss many things like cooking because I have a limited pool of energy, and either I can do my office work or I can cook, and I have to take those calls. And then, of course, there is this emotional aspect of living with a critical illness every day and wondering what next. So those are my lows. My highs are also there. There are several highs. So my first high was 3 months after my surgery back in 2021, I had a open surgery where the doctors had literally cut me up from my diaphragm to my pelvic area. And it was a 7-hour surgery. And 3 months after the surgery and 2 months into chemotherapy, and I was still undergoing chemotherapy, my sister and I took a road trip to McLeodganj. And we had a fabulous trip. I could do a mini hike. It wasn't a very big hike, but I could do a mini hike. And this is all the while when I am, recovering from the surgery and recovering from chemotherapy. And that was such a fantastic high. Such a big high. The high that is probably the biggest high I have is finding a higher purpose in life. Cancer is not a good thing and it should not happen to anybody. But it also did make me realize, especially at a time in my life when I was wondering if I just wanted to be a corporate person or I wanted to give something back to the society and do more, it gave me a way and a platform of helping somebody else. And that, I think, is one of the biggest gifts, quote unquote, I would say, of cancer. That it gave me a purpose. It gave me something to do where I could make some difference beyond just, working for a financial conglomerate. And that, I think, is my biggest high from this disease.
You said you just had a surgery. While you were recovering from the surgery and chemo, you undertook a hike. Typically, people would want to either rest it up. The general notion that people have about somebody who's undergoing illness to the nature that we are looking at is that, you're confined to either one space, you're either recuperating. There is an image that's actually painted. How did you, manage to take the chance of, this is something that I've always done, let me go ahead and do that? You also said that there were lows during this particular phase.
Yeah.
What is it that you kept telling yourself to navigate through this situation, to move through this situation? What was that inner dialogue?
Sure. So let me take this question two parts. The first is the hike part. Let me talk through that and then I'll come to how did I navigate the lows. So to begin with, I must give a shout out to my medical team, which was excellent. I remember my doctors. So I was admitted on Monday. On Tuesday, I had the surgery. On Wednesday, they made me walk. On Thursday, they made me eat. On Friday, they checked if my bowel movement was correct. And then on Saturday, they were like, go home. You're fine. And I remember asking my chief surgeon, Dr. Vinay Gaikwad at Sikkim, I can go home? Am I all right? Can I walk? Can I do everything? And he's like, just don't lift anything. Otherwise, you can run. And I was like, are you kidding me? He's like, no, you can run. And the whole point of doing this surgery, Jayanti, was to give you back your life. What's the point if you're not running? And that was a very profound moment of truth for me. And I'm eternally grateful to these surgeons who could talk to me in that way and restore my faith in myself and in my body. So that was day 5 after the surgery. And when I went for the hike, that was day 90. So I was pretty confident I'm doing well. What made me take off actually kind of links back to your second question. As I had mentioned, I was going through a phase where I kind of felt that I was losing my social support system, that I was not getting the kind of return on the relationships that I kind of expected. Usually, I'm a Bengali, and after Durga Puja, what we do is we have kind of a friends gathering where we all meet and we all eat together. It's called Bijoya. It's like celebration of, the victory of Goddess Durga, and you just meet and you eat and you have a good time together. So I have had a tradition of hosting a dinner right after Durga Puja every year for several years with my friends. So back in 2021 as well, I had sent out invites and told folks that, please keep this weekend free, or let me know if you want to work on another weekend. And, we'll organize this, and I will go ahead and organize this, and blah, blah, and all of that. And everybody had initially said, yes, we'll be there and all of that. We will do all of that. But as the date kind of came closer, everybody's kind of started backing out, to the point that I only had 2 sets of friends who accepted. And it may not sound like a big deal, but this was a series of behavior that I was dealing with since June of that year. And it was very difficult for me at that point. Again, coming on top of the trauma of being diagnosed with cancer, losing your reproductive organs in the prime of your life, and everything else. And there was this one point where I just told my sister that I just need to get away from this place. I just need to leave this place. And at the spur of the moment, we booked a cab and we drove to McLeodganj. It's the home of my heart. And to go there when I was down and out and everything, and we have this place where we always go and stay, which overlooks the Dalai Lama temple. And the moment I reached that place, I started feeling a lot of calm. It could be because I was at a place which has historically made me feel calm and grateful and restore my faith. And the magic just kept working. The very next day, we went to the Dalai Lama temple, and again, it's a very peaceful place. The thing is, you have to climb a lot of stairs, and there was this one point where I was telling my sister, I don't know if I'll be able to negotiate so many stairs. And she was like, so we'll go half the way and we'll come back. And, we don't have to stress you out. And I was like, all right. But somehow I made it to the very top, to the actual sanctorum. And that gave me a lot of confidence. That gave me a lot of belief that if I believed in some things, I could do it. The next day, we booked a cab and we went for the hike. And again, the idea was that I will go as far as I want and then we'll turn back midway. And it wasn't a big hike and it wasn't a very long 10-hour thing. It was a very short hike, but it was something which was more, again, to restore my inner belief system. And we started walking, and initially there were a lot of hikers and people taking selfies and vendors selling stuff, and it was really chaotic and noisy and all of that. And I started walking more to get away from that, the hustle bustle, because I was really seeking some peace and time with the nature. And somewhere the noises stopped and just the rustle of the conifers started guiding our footsteps. And it was a clear blue sky, and the small icicles hanging on top of those Dhauladhar range mountains were like little stars or diamonds. And just looking at them kind of made you, keep wanting to walk further and further and further until you could see them up close. Suddenly, I was at the end of the trail path. And at that point, a lot of things happened to me. It did restore my faith. It also made me accept that life was going to be different. But if I wanted it, I could still make it a very good life. That choice was still mine. And most importantly, it was a validation of the fact that it is very, very good to be alive. So I would say that trip was pretty life-changing in that way. So in terms of relationships, like I mentioned, I lost a lot of them. I don't know why that happens. Maybe we are, as a society, not conditioned to associate with things which we see as weakness or see as burdensome. But for whatever reasons, and it's not just me, since I started the community which I lead, I've heard a lot of cancer patients talk about being ghosted by their friends, about best friends who never, called back, about friends who never texted back, about parties which happened without being informed and nobody ever said, "Hey, I missed you." So this is a phenomenon which actually is not unique to me, but it was painful to me because I was going through it. But on the balance, on the good side, there were a couple of learnings also which I had, which was setting boundaries with people and not just, opening yourself up completely, just for your sanity and also to manage expectations, both yours and theirs. Secondly, I also had some friends come back to my life. These were, friends maybe I had in college or at the university. And we were in touch mostly through social media, but not like actively in touch. But some of them, when they realized that I was actually ill, they actually made a lot of effort to come back in my life. They made sure they spoke to me every day. They texted me every day. And that also made me realize that if somebody cares for you, you don't have to do a lot to show that care. I always talk about this friend of mine. Her name is Charita Sengupta, and she's a professor at the Jamia Millia University, and we were in the university together. And while we were in touch with each other socially, she made a lot of effort to be part of my life and part of my cancer journey once she got to know. And there were days, of course, she has her own life and she has her own challenges when she couldn't text me or call me. But she would send me memes and funny videos and jokes and many such things. And those really helped me because when you're surrounded by all kinds of traumatizing medical instruments or medication, just a funny meme makes your day a lot better. And she did that. I have a dear friend. Her name is Joshin. She's based in US. She's one of my oldest and closest friends. And she, of course, couldn't be here for me physically. But she would check on me without fail after every chemo session. I had mentioned to her casually that, chemo really bruises your skin. So I'm investing a lot in my body care lotions, body lotions and face creams and body washes. And I had just mentioned to her in the passing, ever since that moment 3 years ago, diligently she would find my favorite brands and she would send me care parcels of those brands of body care. So there are ways and means that, you can make a person feel loved and a person feel seen. And that was a huge learning for me as well. And thirdly, and most importantly, I would say that I had to dig deep for resources inside me to discover what all I could do myself. I was always very independent, but I found more resources to be at peace only with myself. And I think I'm in a better place that way. I've gone from being a social butterfly to a bit of a social hermit with more of qualitative friends than quantitative friends and learning where to set the boundaries.
What I uniquely noticed is one person who's a constant companion through this journey of yours is your sister.
I say this often that, your caregivers are the ones who volunteer for this journey, to volunteer to walk through the fire with you. And she's that person in my life at the core of, everything I'm doing. So, like I mentioned, I lost my parents quite a few years ago. And my uncle and aunt, that is her parents, and she are my most immediate family. My uncle and aunt are my surrogate parents, and they are just such a brilliant, kind, strong force in my life that I cannot say enough good things about them. But they live in a different city, and it is my sister who stays with me, with whom I've shared the apartment for years now. And she's the one um, she's at the core of everything I do. She's the one who's stood by me through my physical discomfort. She's the one who stood by me through my emotional distress. She's taken a lot of heat on the days when I felt low and I lost my temper, and she was the first person who was in front of me who received the kind of anger that I felt and absorbed it and helped me navigate through that. She, of course, takes care of all the logistics, whether it's talking to my insurance, talking to the doctors, making it all happen together so that I don't have to bother about it. And that is a very big part. As a cancer patient, you don't want to spend your chemo day trying to work with the insurance and trying to work with the hospital TPA team to make the bills happen and all of that. That's a huge thing which nobody talks about, and only your caregivers or the people close to you can do that. She, of course, takes care of all the household things because I'm no longer capable of doing so much. Like I said, I just do the work. I do a bit of the community work, and then I just try and take care of myself. She is the fountain of strength for me. She is the one who holds my hand during the darkest hours. She's the one who encourages me when I start to falter. And if ever I need the motivation to think, why am I doing this? Why am I going through this journey? I have to just look at her. Because here is a woman who's extremely talented, who has a PhD, and who has put her entire life on hold to take care of me. And if that doesn't motivate me to, try and live my life as much as possible, I don't know what will. In our traditional Indian family setup, there are usually 2 or 3 people who are supporting you. Your maybe your partner or your sibling, your parents, your in-laws, so there are usually a few people supporting you. Because of the way our setup is, it's only my sister who's really supporting me day to day. And she's pulling off the work of 3 or 4 people single-handedly. I think having someone like that in your life is incredible and just another reason to be grateful for life and to fight for that life.
Extremely precious to have that kind of a support.
Yes.
What is it that you keep telling yourself when, there's nobody else or there's no external factor of motivation? What is that line of thought that's going through your head?
So despite that trip, there are still times, when things do get low, when the reoccurrence happen, and then when I was told it's incurable cancer, and just generally going through this journey for 3 years can be exhausting, and you move forward 4 steps, and then there are days when you slide back 2 steps. So it's kind of back and forth. A couple of things that works for me is, first of all, I think of how much I love my life. I'm somebody who's always loved life and always looked forward to living and always hoped that tomorrow will be a better day. And I'm eternally grateful that that feeling never leaves me. And that is the first thing I think about. The second thing is that I look at my sister. I look at how much she bears all by herself. And I keep thinking that she is the one who volunteered for this. And I owe her this. Even before myself, I owe her this. The third thing is the realization. And sometimes you don't always think in those lines, but you have to ground yourself in that. Is that what is the point of putting your body through so much of pain, surgery, radiation, chemotherapy, this, that, if you're not going to live and live at that point, live on those good days, and instead of feeling low, I could do so many other things because today physically I'm feeling well. So that's another thing, but that doesn't always work. And fourth, the road trip was an example, was to do something big or small which makes you feel better. It doesn't have to be anything bombastic as taking a road trip. A lot of times, a cup of tea with my sister, or reading a favorite book, or watching my favorite K-series drama that I'm fanatic about is restorative. It takes your mind away from everything that is surrounding you and traumatizing you and directs it to something else. And fifth is good old work. Work when you're distressed. Make your mind work when you're distressed. I do all my emails, all my project planning, all my leftover pending office work, which I never want to do, which you don't feel like doing when I'm distressed. Because there's nothing like solid, good 2-3 hours of brain work to actually take your mind away from the distress and make you hope for a better tomorrow.
I understand that you're a salaried professional where you're also leading a team of people. How do you, with the current scenario, navigate through work?
Work is very important, Mansa. Work is important because it pays the bills. All the expensive treatments and all the road trips, it's paying for that. So first, there is a very mercenary and a financial value to work. So that's on the lighter note. But I think a couple of things which has helped me is, first of all, I work for a very empathetic organization. Holistically, my organization is very supportive. Couple of things which I did, which I think has helped me navigate through work, is having some very candid conversation about my health with my leaders and my team. I have, from the get-go, I have never hidden from my team members or my leaders that I have been diagnosed with this illness and I'm going to need help. That, I think, set the ball rolling for a lot of support, which enables me to continue working. I have developed a flexible way of work. I'm a remote worker, so that really helps me because everybody at work understands that I have a limited pool of energy. Now, in that limited pool of energy, I can either get dressed and come to work, or I can just do the work. So everybody is like, stay at home, do the work. That helps. So having a flexible work routine helps. There are days when I do all my brain work, the emails, the presentations, the project planning in the morning, and then I take my conference calls in the night. So I don't really work 8 hours straight at times. I break them up in 4 or 5 hours of parcels of time. That really helps me get through my work and get through it in a condition without breaking down my health. The other thing is I keep my leader and my team constantly informed of everything. I may in fact be over informing them than under informing them because there is no knowing which is the day when I will fall sick. Chemotherapy has a weird way of impacting you. There are days when you feel like you're on top of the world and the next day you're like 13,000 feet under. So there is no way of me knowing which day I will not fall ill. So I over-inform my team, I over-inform my leader so that if I have to take a sudden sick day off, somebody from my team or my leader can fill in. Thirdly, I like my work. I know this sounds very cliched, but I really love the kind of work I do. And that is a huge driving factor in my navigating my workspace. I enjoy the projects that I do. I enjoy the strategy that I build. I enjoy interacting with some of my colleagues. I have a great team. I have a brilliant boss. I cannot say enough good things about her. And it's fun to talk to them. It's fun to not talk about the disease and instead talk about, oh, did you hear what that person said on that? Or I mean, what do they think? How will we make that happen? And, have those kind of virtual water cooler conversations and normalizing your life as much as possible. My medical oncologist, when I was originally diagnosed, I had asked her just before I started chemotherapy, then how soon can I get back to work? And she had mentioned that you can get back to work after a day of chemotherapy. At that point, I had kind of laughed in my head and I was like, yeah, as if it's so easy. But cut to now, I actually not only get back to work the day after chemotherapy, there are several days when I get back to work on the day of chemotherapy itself. And what I realized that my doctor was trying to say is that go back to work, do your stuff, normalize your life. And knowing that and doing that is very important. And all of this kind of comes together. While I'm talking about it in 1, 2, 3, 4 steps, it doesn't work that way. But all of this kind of comes together to help me navigate my everyday work challenges. The flexible hours, the support from my team, the fact that I like my work and the fact that I want to do my work. All of this comes together to help me kind of work through this.
Connecting the dots of what you were just saying, how do organizations foster the kind of inclusivity that you're talking about for employees who find themselves in situations like yours?
So I know diversity and inclusion is a big thing right now. A lot of organizations are espousing that. And there are lots of trainings and awareness sessions and all of that. But it has to translate into something practical and doable and tractable. That can be, tracked by all organizations. So I want to share a couple of instances of what I mean by this. So our organization, of course, is also very big on DIY and it does do a lot of things, but they actually do put it into practice. And I just want to share about that. So I mentioned about my leader. My leader is based out in US and her name is Julie. And I hope she'll forgive me for taking her name on a podcast. But she's an amazing leader. And the way she navigates my condition, I talk to a lot of other people. I think she's a role model on how she kind of tackles my situation. She is always flexible about my health needs, always. Whether I have to take a leave or whether I need to log off early, she is always amenable to that. At the same time, she doesn't treat me as an employee who just needs to be shunted in a corner and, she's no good because she's ill. She keeps giving me important projects. She keeps demanding that I'm held accountable for that. And she keeps giving me enough platform to showcase my work. I do very solid work in this organization, which makes me feel engaged and which makes me feel like I'm an important part of this organization despite my illness. That unique balance, I think, is foundational to any of these diversity and inclusion things that we talk about. The fact that, one day I may virtually walk into Julie's Slack and say, Julie, I'm going to take off because I just can't keep my head straight. I'm so unwell. And she's like, right, go ahead, take the time off. And the next day when I walk into virtually in her Slack conversation and say, okay, I have availability and this is what I've identified. Can I go after this? And she's like, sure, I'm giving you clearance, go after that. That thing is precious. And that thing in practice is, I think, very, very, very important for all organizations to deliver on. And my boss is exceptional in that. And again, I'm very fortunate about that. The second thing is to have an organization that listens to you. They incorporated my feedback and they rolled out an insurance plan which would help me navigate this journey. Not only that, last year when I had reached out to them, telling them that, hey, this doesn't work for me, they had said that, don't worry about it. Carry on with your treatment. We will take care of anything which doesn't fall under the insurance premises. We will personally fund for it. So don't worry about it. And this year, they made sure that the insurance covered whatever it needed to cover, and it was designed in a way that could accommodate for employees like me. Not only that, they also got back to me saying that, we've done this. So please feel free to, ask us any other questions and enroll into the program. This kind of very practical but very important help for all diverse employees is so critical. Our organization is one of the remarkable organizations which actually supports the LGBTQ, not just in name, but by also providing health insurance to partners, domestic partners. Those kind of things, those fungible things are critical to the development of this whole concept of, diversity and inclusion.
Remarkable. The entire situation that you refer to, like they say, it takes an entire community to raise a child. Similarly, it takes an entire community to get a person through, to make them successful at work as well.
Yes, absolutely. And I'm very fortunate to kind of have this, and I realize my good fortune because, again, in my community, I hear things like, so there is this one young woman who's been diagnosed with cancer. She's now in remission, and she joined back her work. She was a great performer. And the very next day after her joining back her work, her leader called her. Leader is a bit of a misnomer here, but her leader called her and told her something to the effect of that, we are so glad you're well, but please be aware that if this happens again, we will not be able to accommodate you. I mean, that is so unkind and arbitrary. And unfortunately, we don't have, laws which protect cancer patients. For instance, in US, the disability laws cover cancer patients as well. So something like this would be not only an HR issue, would be a legal issue. Unfortunately, in India, we don't have that. And, this particular manager could get away by saying something like this to their employee. And when I hear about such situations and I think about where I am eternally grateful. And I keep using, the example of my organization of how much more other organizations can do.
Well, we use your story as a medium to let other people know what is out there, not only from your perspective, meaning somebody who's going through this particular situation, but also by, the other side of the journey. For example, you shared, how your organization helped us through the situation to help you grow. What motivates you to share your journey?
When I was diagnosed, I did a lot of reading. And I also joined a lot of Facebook community, which, for cancer patients. And by the time my treatment actually started, I felt I knew the enemy and I knew how it works and I felt very empowered. But once I was in the journey, I realized there were a lot of things which were left unsaid. Not because of any particular reasons, but because the journey is so unique that your medical team, with the best of their intentions, cannot tell you stuff because they are not in your shoes, much as they try. Then it becomes a very unique and to a great extent a lonely journey. The second thing was, as a society, I think Indian society still holds cancer as a taboo subject. I don't know why, but it seems the more I spoke to people, the more I realized was they would rather not talk about it, something which is shunted inside the dark end corners of the cupboard and nobody should know about it, which was very strange. And this was even more strange because unfortunately, India has a high rising rate of people being diagnosed with cancer, especially young people in the prime of their lives, in the prime of their careers, who are being diagnosed with this horrible disease and who are struggling to find a balance between the disease and leading their lives. It's no longer a disease which only happened to somebody who is 70 years old. This is a disease which is happening to a 30-year-old, a 33-year-old, a 35-year-old, sometimes even a 28-year-old, unfortunately. And there is no social support structure which is there to help navigate these people through those journeys. The only thing, at least which I heard, every time I would talk about my cancer was that, oh yeah, my uncle's sister's husband's niece's daughter had cancer. She died. That is not the thing you want to hear about when you're being diagnosed with cancer. Which is why I felt that I needed to talk about my journey. I needed to share perspectives. I needed to share the good story, the bad story, the okay stories, so that anybody who's being diagnosed today doesn't feel that what they are going through is unique. It's bad enough you're dealing with the cancer trauma. You don't have to deal with the other social traumas alone. We can't make the path for them, but at least we can give them some basic guidelines maybe on how to navigate it. And that's why I started the community, which is why I talk about my journey, which is why I talk about other people's journey if they are comfortable sharing it with me. Today I get so many questions about so many different things. I get questions about how do you manage work, the question which you asked, because I'm due for a promotion. I don't know if I should share this with my company. What do I do? I get questions about how to manage relationships, even intimate relationships. How do I react with my partner? I don't know if I'm the same person. And these are very sensitive things. Or something as some people would say frivolous as that wig which you wore in that picture. Where did you get that? I want that wig. I have a wedding to attend and I want something like that. So many people have gotten back to me about the cancer caps which I wear because they're funky and they're really cool. And they're like, where did you buy them? We don't get those here. So it's a host of things that, people have questions about. And I'm happy to answer that because I know how it feels to be isolated. And if I can take away some bit of that isolation or just be there to listen to somebody's grievance who's going through something that I've gone through and I'm going through, I think that kind of makes that adds a lot of, how do I put it? That I know it's weird to say that, but that makes this illness worth it.
And Jayanti, how do people reach out to you? Like, let's just say if people want to be a part of the community that you run, other social media platforms that you're available on.
Of course, anybody can reach out to me at Instagram. My handle is very easy. It's Candid Cancer Conversation. All one word, no spaces, no nothing. It is Candid Cancer Conversation. I'm the only one with that handle on Instagram. I have a bit of a presence on Facebook and a bit of a presence on Thread, but those are not really big. I eventually do plan to transfer this into a website kind of a model as well, which I'm working through. But for now, you can reach out to me on Instagram. And then there's a lot of word of mouth as well, Mansa. A lot of my friends refer their families who've been diagnosed to me, and then that chain kind of builds. My doctors often have me come and speak to other patients during, various events, and even mentor new patients, like, new patients who are like, who've just been diagnosed and who are worried. It's always comforting for them to speak to somebody who's been through the journey before. And my doctors really leverage me to have a conversation there. And yeah, otherwise DM me anytime on Candid Cancer Conversation.
Understood from the corporate perspective as to what do corporates do to make it inclusive. Now, coming back, the larger frame of the entire ecosystem, which is the society. How can society better support individuals going through a situation like yours?
The first thing that the society needs to do is to approach individuals like us from a mindset of empathy and kindness. I think that has to be the foundation of everything the society wants to do. To be kind and truly be kind and not pity someone. There's a difference between pity, oh, you poor thing, arey bachara thing, to being kind. I think that is very important. The first thing I would say. The second thing is, if you may not know what to say, you may not know the details of the disease, you may not also want to know, but you still want to help someone. There are ways of talking about it, and there are ways of reaching out to that person. You can always say things like, hey, I can't imagine what you're going through, but I'm going to help you through this journey, and I'm going to figure out how I can do that. And staying in touch, just don't do the disappearing act. It's better to drop a text once in a while than just disappear because I don't know what to say. I mean, just say that you don't know what to say, but you are holding this person in your heart and in your mind. That in itself is very good. Second, I would say, don't give random advice. Do not go with WhatsApp University and say things like, have lemon water, it will cure your cancer. No, it won't. And those kind of unsolicited medical advice is totally harmful physically and mentally for the patient. If you want to help somebody, if you want to suggest something to someone, don't just send the first forward related to that disease that comes to your phone. If that person matters to you and if you really want to recommend, spend a little bit of time, do a little bit of research, and then suggest. And suggest in a manner where you can say that, hey, I came across this, I looked it up. It seems like something that may work for you. So I'm just passing it on. Feel free to use it or not. Because the cancer patient is already getting a lot of advice and some of it is totally not required. Third, be careful of what you say. So there are two sides. One which will say, oh, somebody died. And the other which will say, oh, be positive. Everything will be all right. No. That hyper-toxic positivity doesn't work either. The patient who's already going through these stages is already navigating a lot and navigating it with sheer willpower. And that in itself has some positivity to it. So we don't need additional hyper cheerleading positivity. Don't say things like, it's all in your mind. It's not in my mind. I have been diagnosed. There is a disease. Don't say things like, I understand. Flu and cancer, we cannot compare. I had once somebody tell me that, yeah, this is like, cancer is like overthinking, It's exactly like that. Like, who says those things? Don't say those things. Think about what you're going to say to the patient. If that person is important for you, spend that little bit of time thinking. And all of this rolls back again to my first point, empathize and be kind. And I would say that's also another reason why I started talking about my journey, because we need to normalize this conversation about cancer, We need to talk more about it and make the society feel comfortable to have that conversation as well. I remember one of my cancer friends once saying that so much of our time as a cancer patient is spent trying to make our non-cancer society feel comfortable about us. And that shouldn't be the case. We spend so much time trying to say, oh, don't worry, it's going to be all right. Because all the reactions we get are either so negative or so hyper positive. We have to kind of spend that time bringing them to the center. And some of this work needs to be done by the society itself, which is why you have to approach it with kindness. And you have to do a little bit of hard work in trying to understand what the situation is and how you can help that patient. There are lots of ways to do it. It doesn't require a lot of money, but you have to make that effort and you have to be open to having that conversation.
What would you advise for somebody who's just being diagnosed with cancer or is going through a journey that's similar to yours?
First things first, don't give up. Do not give up. No matter what, do not give up. When everybody around you is telling you that this person died of cancer and that person died of cancer, what nobody is telling you is that there are currently 27 million cancer survivors worldwide. Medical science has made so much of progress. Every single day there is a new breakthrough coming through. So do not give up. I know that moment when the diagnosis comes in, it feels like our world has ended, but it has not. There are innumerable examples of people who have been diagnosed with cancer, who were expected to live for 4 months, and now have been living for 40 years. Olivia Newton-John lived 35 years with cancer. 35 years she lived. And she lived, she was an international star. She did shows, she did films, she did stage shows. She did everything with cancer. We have, in India, we have Sonali Bendre, who was cancer, she was told was very advanced, and she was given like 3 months or 4 months. And that was like 6 years ago. And she's working in all these shows and she's judging dance shows and everything, right? So don't give up. No matter what, don't give up. Secondly, there is a mind aspect to this illness. This is an illness where your mind leads the charge. So when you think you can do this, you can do this. So do it. Make it happen. You can and you shall. And third, have some faith. Have some faith in your medical team. Have some faith in, if you are religious, in whatever gods you believe in the universe, in the energy around us, whatever. And have faith in yourself. Have faith in your body that you can do this and you shall. You very much shall. It's not over till it's over. So keep walking. Don't stop. He's one of my favorite authors, Terry Pratchett. He wrote a lot of these very, very soulful fantasy books. And in one of the books, there is this witch who can send her, like, physically she can be present here, but she can put her mind into somebody else's body. And because her mind was in somebody else's body, people would think she's dead. So she would always hold a placard when she was doing this exercise which said, I eaten dead. And I think that's my mantra. I'm not dead. I eaten dead. I'm not dying before my time. I'm not going through so much of physical and emotional turmoil just to think that, oh, I can't do this. I'm going to live every day and I'm going to make every day count. Because, like I keep saying, what's the point of going through this journey if you're not going to make it happen? If you're not going to live your life? Like, Rajesh Khanna's character in Anand said that जिंदगी लंबी नहीं बड़ी होनी चाहिए. लंबी तो हो जाएगी. Today, medical science is very advanced. So, my life will be long. I know that. But it should be worth it also. There should be something great and fantabulous and rocking and shining about it. And that is what I will believe my mantra in life is. Do something which is great. Live that moment. Be in that moment. Help others. Read that book. Drink that coffee. Cook that meal. Go out on that date. Have as many experiences as you can. Because it's life. It's a gift. Live it.
Beautifully put. What do you look forward to the most in life?
after all of that months. As you can see, I look forward to everything in my life. But I do have this bucket list. One is, okay, it's not a bucket list. It's really a list of never-ending list of things I want to do. But first, a couple of things which I really want to do over the next couple of short term, next couple of years is travel a bit more. I haven't done international travel in a while. So I really want to do some, especially with my sister. I think over quite a few trips, just for the amount of, mood tantrums I throw on her. I used to write a lot at one point. Lately, that has taken a backseat. I don't believe it's so much of my illness as much as, just not making an effort. So I want to get a little more disciplined about it again and write more. I have this big thing. I'm a huge Western music. Actually, I'm a huge classical music fan, whether Hindustani or Carnatic or Western. Now, I've been fortunate enough to listen to a lot of greats in the Hindustani and the Carnatic music, but I really want to experience a philharmonic orchestra concert. So I really want to do that sometime in the near future. And read more books as always, buy more books as always, buy a few more saris as well, cook more, and generally live my life more, and do more of candid cancer conversation where I can reach out to more people, leverage more platforms, and give a helping hand to those who are going through the journey like mine.
And on that note, Jayanti, we really hope that there's, quote unquote, a lot of wonderful mores that keep getting added to your life. And as you navigate, through the journey, it becomes something that people have to look forward to. And on that note, it's the wrap from my end.
Thank you so much, Vansa, for this lovely platform and for allowing me to speak my heart out and get my message out. Thank you so much.
And this wraps up a podcast with Jayanti Chakraborty. Jayanti's journey reveals a profound yet obvious truth about the essence of living. Life's value is measured not by its duration, but by the richness of our experiences and the depth of moments we embrace. Her story teaches us that self-belief is fundamental to finding fulfillment, joy, and purpose. Jayanti reminds us to approach life with enthusiasm, make most of every opportunity, and create meaningful memories. Above all, Jayanti's message is clear. Never stop believing in yourself. Embrace your journey with unwavering self-belief, letting every moment reflect a life fully lived. If you enjoyed this podcast of The Human Collab, do let us know your favorite part of the podcast in the comment section. Do share this episode with your friends and family and subscribe to The Human Collab. Let's foster a community where strength and compassion thrive.